Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different than what I've been doing lately. And we're bringing back an old show that I used to do called Behind the Play, where I would take a look at specific strategies and executes, or certain trends maybe I was seeing on certain maps, or maybe I was taking a first look at a new team and how they were approaching certain things with their roles and tempo and style, and just kind of a free-for-all when it comes to talking about tactics and strategy and Counter-Strike. And so I'm bringing that back because today, as I'm recording this video, we got our first look at the new version of Train in Counter-Strike 2 by some top teams. There were some smaller teams that had played this map very recently, but we kind of saw it at our first big event, which is the Blast Bounty kicking off. They're still in their online portion, the qualifiers, but we saw Spirit playing Fnatic on this map, and so I kind of wanted to just take a look at some of the basics that we're seeing on this map, how they're similar to maybe previous versions of Train, and just kind of explore some of the things that we're seeing on the map is kind of what I'm getting at. First of all, though, some quick housekeeping. If you're not already, please do subscribe to this channel, like this video, and comment down below if you don't mind, as I am really trying to grow this channel. We have gained over 350 new subscribers in just the last 30 days. Most of those within the last couple of weeks, so I really do appreciate all the support. So if you don't mind, go ahead and do that for me. Let me know what you think about this type of video, as well as this is going to be a little bit of newer type of content, or, you know, a throwback to content I used to do a long time ago. So basically it is new for most of you. And yeah, I would just really appreciate it. Also, if you want to, in the description down below, I actually collaborated with another CS2 content creator on YouTube called Lionhearts. And we talked a little bit about Simple and Roster Mania and stuff like that. So I'll link that video down below too if you want to check that out. It was a good time. But without further ado, there's not going to be as much talking head in this type of video. There's going to be more of me either showing in-game footage through a demo or a replay on YouTube or whatever the case may be, or in some situations like this one, where we'll be taking a look at the map overview using the Edge Skybox tool. So without further ado, let's hop into it as we get our first look at CS2's version of Train. So before we start explaining the drawings on the screen and going through some rounds, it's worth noting some context to this match on Train. So this was the Blast Bounty, which is a very unique format where lower seeded teams get to pick their opponents, and based on how hard their opponent is, which is, you know, based on world ranking and seeding and things of that nature, will increase the amount of prize money you win if you beat that opponent. But it is a single elimination bracket, so one loss and you're out, and so that is the risk you're taking by taking on one of the bigger name teams. Spirit, obviously the major champions, who has not made any roster changes, is one of the hardest opponents you could pick. Now, Fnatic, of course, had just went through a pretty big series of roster changes, benching their former in-game leader Body and bringing in Fear from Passion UA, who made a lot of noise at the major. Then they also brought in Burmilov, who I believe was the opera for Mouse NXT. Was a little surprised to not see them get Jumbo to go along with Fear, or maybe someone a little bit more higher profile. But, you know, it is what it is. We'll give Burmilov a chance and see how it goes. But obviously, Mattis has at times produced a very strong rifler. Blame F, of course, you know, he's a super strong rifler. Crims is a veteran. And then you guys all know Spirit, Donk, best player in the world. Shiro, one of the best operas in the world. Zontic's pretty solid supporting cast member. Magic's had a freaking Magic grand final at the major, and it can sometimes be a supportive element. And then, of course, Chopper, kind of a veteran at this point as the IGL. And this was actually Fnatic picking Train as kind of an upset potential map, as I think what they were looking for here, because, you know, now with Vertigo out of the map pool and Spirit not being a team that ever really banned Vertigo, you could kind of know what map they were going to ban, and so you knew that Train was maybe going to be an option if you didn't want to ban it yourself, and so Fnatic did decide to go for this. So kind of what I've drawn on here really quickly before we actually start taking a look at the rounds as a whole is just kind of some main anchor points that you're always going to see in traditional setups or default setups. And so the X's represent anchor points that typically at least one terrorist will be occupying, right? So if you are playing a default, you're going to have at least one person kind of managing T connector or kind of keeping an eye on it, eventually pressing it out to pressure outer if you're going to go for an outer split. Maybe they'll fall back and go inner halls if you're going inner, but there's going to be someone here. Then you're usually going to have someone keeping tabs on Ivy, whether it's to pressure this area to keep CTs honest, whether it's just to make sure that CTs aren't flanking through Ivy, whether it's to actually use this as a focal point. you're going to have some type of presence at Ivy, more than likely. And then you're going to have someone inner halls. And this works a little bit differently now because it's not a ladder room where you're having to drop down a ladder. You're seeing all kind of wacky shit where you were doing like human towers coming down the ladder together to try to get an accurate shot off of someone playing in here. Different pot flashes that you were trying to throw down here, but then that got difficult because you could hear the pin noise and there was different Molotovs you could... Dude, it was wild. I'm glad they got rid of ladder room, though I do think they could actually streamline this Pop Dog hallway a little bit. But we're not going to get to that just now. But point is you're going to have some kind of anchor point inside inner halls. You're watching to see if CTs are going to get aggressive in these halls, if they're going to try to actually wrap all the way around and try to, flank this Pop Dog area. Not really flank it because, CTs can obviously access it, coming out of connector and just running straight to it, depending on timings and things of that nature. Since they've moved T-spawns back in the most recent patch of Train, this is a little bit easier to do. CTs are able to get utility and T-con a little bit easier and faster to allow themselves to try to get into here. So CTs can still approach this hallway from here, but you may, see CT still trying to get it from inner, and so having someone kind of spotting that is good. Also just making sure you're not getting flanked. And it's just also, again, an opportunity to create some presence at inner to, keep players honest, maybe even draw a rotation. Then for CTs, you really have two main anchor points. You're going to have at least one player playing Ivy. There will be some setups where you have two. It just kind of depends, right? You're going to usually have at least one guy on Ivy, though, just making sure that you're not getting lurked on by someone Ivy, or just getting an idea of how many numbers they have Ivy. That gives you a little bit more of an idea whether they're trying to put emphasis there or not. So you're usually going to have somebody kind of here, right? And then outer yard will obviously have a combination of players, probably at least two, sometimes three. Every now and then it's two, though, because maybe you're going to have some type of double inner setup, so it's kind of two inner, two outer, one Ivy, something like that, right? It kind of depends. A lot of the long sight lines are gone now on this map, so that changes dynamics a little bit about where your opera is going to be placed. But sometimes you'd have operas opping down Ivy. Sometimes you'd have operas playing inner. Sometimes you'd have them playing outer. But I think now you're going to see operas a little bit more encouraged to play up close because it's just hard to get any type of long sight lines. You can kind of get one here into T-Con, but not really. It's a lot more difficult than it used to be. If you're kind of playing this area with an op, you can't really see much. Like you kind of have to slide out to even be able to see towards Pop or towards T-Con. So think things are definitely different in that regard. These triangles are just kind of points that are going to be contested, right? People are going to be fighting probably for control of Pop Dog. You're probably going to see CTs a little bit more prone to play up close and fight for T-Connector, or at least their utility to stall it. And then, Ivy can become an area of interaction as well, of course. And so this is just kind of some areas that you might see some fights up here as well on the other side of inner halls or coming down. These are some of the main choke points that are going to be fought between the X's, the terrorists, and the O's, the CTs. So those are just kind of some basics that we know about Train from the past, from previous iterations. And while this map is certainly different, there's some trains that are gone. The spaces aren't as wide open as they used to be. There's not as long of sight lines in a lot of areas that used to have them. There are still kind of some core fundamentals to take a look at. And so we're starting off with round 3, and this is going to be Fnatic on the T side, and this is going to see them playing a default, but with a little bit more emphasis on Ivy. Again, we kind of know what the primary anchor points are, but you're going to shuffle whether you're going like, double Ivy, triple Ivy setup sort of thing in older versions of CSGO's Train. Or, you might have more of a focus of like 3 players in our halls, but you probably still have like one guy here, one guy there, or maybe 2 here and no one Ivy. It's going to vary, obviously. But in this case, Fnatic is going for a double Ivy setup. They do go for the quick smoke. This is what I think a lot of people are calling sandwich, like the sandwich smoke between red and yellow Train is kind of one of the main areas. Smoking this and then smoking here are probably the 2 most common smokes you're going to see. I've been calling this Icon. A lot of the talent were calling it Icon because this map dropped while we were at the RMRs in the major, and so we were playing it, and we kept calling it Icon because this is Ivy, and then this is the connector between Ivy and outer yard, and Icon just rolls off the tongue rather quickly. I know some people will call this camera. Some people will call this a hall, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. I'm going to call it Icon, just so you know, right? So anyway, those are some common smoke areas. Obviously, utility challenging here is another thing that you're going to do as you're trying to get into the outer yard area. So you kind of start seeing that utility come in. One interesting thing that I saw was a double nade stack that you see Blame F and Bermalov do here. that is trying to catch a CT fast crossing into ladder. So you notice these two dots right here, these were both HE grenades. So that might be something to keep an eye on going forward as a play to try to prevent CTs from getting any type of pop dog access quickly coming right out of the gate. Could be something to keep an eye on. Other than that, though, you kind of see what the anchor points are. Crims is kind of the anchor point right now over towards inner halls. It seems like Mattis, from what I was watching, was kind of their anchor point over towards Ivy area. Blame F was kind of the anchor point towards T-Con. And then Fear would kind of roam depending on what area he wanted to focus on. And then obviously Burmy as an opera is going to be kind of a roamer as well. And we can see here that with the CT smoke, Chopper's going to challenge up close. Donk's going to get E-Box up close. You're going to see them keep putting utility over towards T-Con to kind of keep Chopper and Donk in these safe forward positions. In the meantime, you are going to see a smoke come out here from Madison Fear as they try to pressure Ivy even further. Counter Incendiary is going to come in to try to slow that down. But Madison Fear are going to kind of keep pressing the issue. Magix, though, gets some nade damage in. You know, trying to flash them, trying to fight them back as best he can. CTs are kind of relying on these smokes, blocking T-Con and Pop Dog, and the fact that Chopper has gotten inside of T-Con to kind of put a little bit more emphasis over towards this Ivy pressure now. Mattis is able to get out, but gets spotted. Not going to check this corner that Magix gets, so Magix gets good timing there. And then Fear ultimately gets caught as well. And at this point, this round's kind of already done and dusted, if we're honest. But to make matters worse, Chopper's playing this up-close area on T-Con. Donk actually throws an Incendiary that doesn't get Chopper, and I think it gives Fnatic a false sense of security that no one's in there, so Donk kind of sells them on that, and then eventually he's going to come over here and challenge Crims at Pop, goes down, but then Chopper gets his kill, and then man advantage rolls out in favor of the CTs in the end. So just kind of wanted to show you a little bit about the default positions that Ts are playing here for, you know, just kind of a standard opening that you're probably going to see a lot on this map, which kind of, again, those three anchor points with this time added emphasis at Ivy. You're also kind of learning a little bit about positions. You know, Mage just seeming to be the Ivy player for Spirit, Zontic seeming to be the inner anchor, and then obviously Donk and Chopper are going to be kind of the main outer players, and then Shear's probably going to be the one rotating with the AWP, but there might be times where he's opting with one of these riflers, and one of them is rifling with Zontic inside inner. You know, again, that is going to be plug-in players from any team, and those are some of the common trends you're probably going to see. So now I'm going to fast forward to round number 8, and this is going to show a little bit of something different where we're going to see something faster from Fnatic, right? And so essentially you're going to see that same smoke sandwich, that smoke towards Icon I was talking about. Nades are going to come into T-Con, but Blame F gets a pretty good timing. This is basically one of the better front spawns, I think, now that Blame F probably got here. So he just sends it as fast as he can. And this kind of showed you that depending on the CT utility timing, there is still ways to slip out T-Con and get into this red train area. And really, whenever you have, you know, these two smokes down, as long as no one has made it to Olaf, as a T, you kind of get control of this entire area of the map. And I think that's really one of the main aims you're going to see a lot from Ts, is if they can get that smoke down, get the smoke down, get a good timing out, get some good flash support, whatever the case may be, you can control this section, and then you can kind of sit on it. Like, you know, it's kind of some partial outer control, and you can use this to eventually pressure through your smoke with the pop flash, or maybe once it fades, it'll give you a sight line. You can obviously eventually take this sight line towards E-Box, and you can even obviously do some type of pinch on Ivy, you know, with an Ivy player or something along those lines. But in this case, they sneak Blame F out, but other than that, they kind of stay fairly default. Burmy, though, is going to have a straight-up op duel with Shiro at Ivy and win. I'm sure you're going to see op battles there all the time. Not, you know, uncommon by any means for Train. But as the rest of the round starts to play out, you can see that Magix does eventually catch Blame F here as he kind of pushes off Ivy into hell position. Donk gets aggressive against Fear inside T-Con, wins that fight. And so ultimately the CTs again get some pretty early picks, but it just kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of like a tempo change, the types of timings you might be kind of seeing in the outer yard area, and just some of the positions that people are kind of taking up in these early round situations. Now in this round, you're going to see Fnatic go for a bit of a fake kind of outer. They're going to throw that same sandwich smoke and some flashes over. as well as a smoke on the pop dog doorway to maybe make people think that they're trying to get control of that area that I was talking about earlier over by Olaf and Hell. But they're actually stacking 3 players towards inner. And so again, you still have your Ivy anchor point, though he's playing very far back. You still have your T-Con anchor point, even though he's playing, pretty passively with this CT smoke up. And then you have 3 players towards inner, right? So this is just kind of an inner-focused default, but not a commitment to an inner execute just yet. Obviously, Zontix, if you look here, rewind, he spots this. He's going to immediately drop down the incendiary, fall back, and then smoke. Very common reactions for CTs that are playing inner by themselves, and he's getting the rotation from Shiro. Also, note the double op. This is another thing that is going to be more common on this map than others. Even with there not being as long of sight lines, I think double op is going to still be a little bit viable on this map on CT side, similar to Dust 2. You also might see some AUGs. I think Magis used an AUG at some point this game, if I haven't already shown that. Obviously, there's players out there who use AUGs like Rops and Kerrigan and a few others, so could see some of that, I think. But anyway, they try to kind of feint this outside play. Zontic spots the inner pressure, though. That's going to cause Shiro to rotate. You can see now they molly to make sure no one's playing up close. T-Con, try to, put a little bit of pressure there. But the timing from Chopper's Ivy flank is just so damn good on this. And so ultimately, what was kind of a feint outer, pressure inner with these smokes and Molotov on Z, and then they're going back pop dog because they want to split outer. That they're doing some nice, creating presence and doing a little bit of back and forth on their rotations, but the fact that Chopper is able to get this flank off pretty much crushes this. And then the main outer defense plays pretty well also, especially with Shiro rotating back with the op through Z, kind of beats the timing on the Molotov. And so that's pretty much all she wrote. But I just kind of wanted to show, generally speaking, a little bit of the idea that Fnatic was kind of going for in that round and how it was responded to. Now here you're going to see Fnatic these next couple of rounds is going for some brute force plays. So I kind of wanted to show this a little bit. Again, just kind of showing some of the timings. They're going to be quickly smoking Sandwich and Icon. CT utility comes in pretty quick with smoke and nade. But you see they kind of just force through it. They smoke Sandwich, smoke Icon, smoke Pop Dog, and then they kind of just flash their way through this. I think Mattis even extinguished an incendiary. Yeah, he does. Throws his own Molotov towards back a bomb train. And so now you're seeing kind of one of these crazy tempo changes where you can really see just what the full utility of a fast outer hit's accomplishing. You're blocking this area off. You're blocking this area off. You're clearing out this area with the Molotov. You're clearing out this area with the Molotov. You've already gotten out, so you've cleared this position. That's clear with Mattis coming out. You smoke this area off. And so really now, the only spots you have to worry about are, kind of this space between red and bomb train. And then eventually you're going to have to figure out how you want to handle Z. I think maybe eventually teams will start adding smokes or Molotovs here as they execute, but there's only so much utility you can throw on the fly as you're trying to get into the site. But yeah, you can see they just kind of brute force their way through. Mattis actually goes through the sandwich smoke with the pop flash. Chopper kind of hides inside of it. But Fnatic are able to kind of eventually trade him out. Got another entry as well onto Donk. And so they wind up having good advantage here. 4 versus 3. They have Magic smoked off. And so really only Zontix and Shiro can do much about this. And while Shiro does get 1 with the AWP, actually gets a second as well, Fear eventually does trade him. Blame F takes down Zontix. And so now it's Magic stuck in the back in a 2 versus 1 that ultimately Fnatic are able to get done. Final round for Fnatic on the T side here. I just want to show them kind of using something they did earlier in the game and how they use that to do a different play and kind of mask it. So we saw earlier in round 9 of this game that we broke down how they did kind of an outer fake and then they went triple inner. And so they do this again, except they send Blame F out and he actually gets a kill at Olaf and they have no Ivy presence. They immediately spot Zontix, and Zontix has that same response of dropping incendiary and smoke, but they just run right through it. And this just shows the weakness of CT incendiaries right now. They don't last as long. They don't do as much damage. And it's just easier to brute force through them now. And that's going to be a problem map pool wide that we need to figure out. It's not just train, but this just goes to show you the explosiveness that you can do as Match just gets like a double entry, and that's kind of all she wrote. So just again showing you a little bit of the tempo change. You saw them throw a lot of the same utility they would use for outer pressure. Like, these are the two basic ones I feel like are going to get used all the time, it seems like. And then you're probably going to see one here as well, unless you want to use it yourself as like another route for your attack at outer. And even then, you might still throw one here immediately. Make sure you get control of this space, and then that smoke will eventually fade, then you can come out. So these seem to be the three most common smokes we're seeing thrown. And then from there, it's kind of like hodgepodge, whatever else you want. We saw like that cute little double nade stack here, one round. Obviously, flashes can come over this wall pretty easily. And just to give you a little bit of a look. But I'll show you a few rounds from Team Spirit. I don't want to make this crazy long, so I'm only showing you a few. So this one, we're just going to see Spirit try to run a fast outer play and get absolutely shut down. So you can see they also go for the sandwich smoke. They also go for the icon smoke. Maze just gets out real quick. Gets that Molotov to try to block off this rotation from Fear to get an assistance on the outer yard. Also, obviously, that flash is coming over as well here. Fear does get chased off. And so they do a pretty good job isolating. Like, they've, again, secured this space, blocked a CT off from kind of pushing into hell. They've also cleared out this space. They didn't smoke off Pop. But again, that means that all they really have to focus on is the space between Red and Bomb Train. That is going to be kind of the main area of contest, it seems like, a lot of time, unless people force through utility or beat timings on utility or things of that nature. And in this situation, while Donk is able to get the entry, Zontix is going to go down to blame F. Burmy's going to find Magix. Donk has like no HP left to really play with. They try to fall back off of this, but man advantage for Fnatic. And eventually, you know, they're able to kind of slow this thing down. Then round 19, we'll show you a round that Spirit wins. And this is by them doing some outer pressure into an inner take. And then they wind up having a 3v3 post plant they're able to achieve. So again, your smoke sandwich, flash is over. Smoke icon a little later, but still your two basic smokes are being routinely thrown here. That Molotov seems to be pretty common as well. Again, really just trying to focus on getting control of this area early. We are going to see the nade stack actually take Donk down, but Zontix is still able to get out. And so now they're kind of in a semi-default at this point, but Zontix is getting aggressive outer, gets E-box control, gets a kill. Everyone's just kind of holding at this point. CT's not really sure where the hit's going to be at. They obviously know the inner could still be a threat. But Zontix is doing a really good job just continuously putting pressure on the A site with some support from Magix and his utility, keeping Icon smoked off. He even takes a fight here, takes some damage but stays alive. And so doing a really good job selling this with these two players, as two are essentially going to sneak into inner through the upper side. And so even when Fear gets this kill on the Zontix, Bomb is able to make its way into B. They catch Burmy rotating immediately. So now they kind of realize what's going on. Bomb's able to go down with those mollies on Z, or connector, whatever you want to call it. Match just continues to be a nuisance and outer, and they get into this 3-on-2 post plant, and ultimately will win the round. And then final round will show, it's just a solid round from Spirit, just improvising after getting some control of this pop hallway right here, and getting access to this room. So, smoke sandwich. Other than that, though, putting a lot more emphasis on just going Pop Dog Hall. They actually, if you notice this, Molotov this stairwell to make sure that no one can pressure them. And then they also throw a smoke here. So this kind of shows what it looks like when your emphasis is going to be getting inner halls. You know, smoking off this upper angle that can be peaked, mollying off this stairwell to stop the CT from being able to press up on the corner. It kind of guarantees you a way to really not have to worry about any of this area, and you can put all your focus on this hallway at that point. So that's what they do. Mattis actually plays in here, though, and smokes it off, so he's aware of what they're trying to do at this point. Meanwhile, the two oppers, Burmy and Shiro, are just kind of passive stance Ivy. Blame F and Mattis are playing forward. Chopper just playing passive T-Con. So, again, that 3 anchor point theory still in place, but the emphasis is on inner to Pop Dog Hallway. They'll eventually clear out Pop. This was a nice attempt from Blame F to pop flash Mattis into Pop to fight Donk, but Donk unfazed and gets the kill onto Mattis. So now they have 5-on-4 advantage. Still a lot of time left on the clock. They molly E-Box to make sure no one's hiding behind that. Smoke off Icon. Molly up close on T-Con so Chopper can start moving forward. With these flashes, Donk able to get some swings on outer, get some looks, clear out a couple of angles. You even see that they decide to put some inner presence as well with this flash from Zontix, so that keeps Krems interested and even causes Fear to start rotating. Then they're able to come out, clear back Bomb Train with Molotov, take out Burmy, long range here from Chopper. And while Blame F does have control of this Olaf position, he's able to actually kill Donk, they're able to fight the Z rotation very well here, killing Fear, while Chopper catches Burmy. And so at that point, Blame F's on an island. And now they can just double swing him from both sides of red, Shiro and Chopper, put him into a beautiful crossfire, take him out, and that's going to be a done round. So folks, that's going to do it for this video. I just wanted to kind of take a first look at Train, kind of show some fundamentals and some theory over kind of what some of the basics are for both sides of the map, T and CT, show you some of the basic utility that's being used pretty consistently. I think kind of just show you some theory on how, you know, we saw Spirit and Fnatic on their T sides kind of look to control certain areas, whether that was to pressure Ivy, whether that was to go for fast outer plays, how they were approaching outer takes. You know, we saw Spirit there at the very end, that final round, show you a little bit about how they're looking to, you know, pressure inner halls and really control that Pop Dog hallway to make that like a main route of attack onto an outer hit. And these are just some of our first looks, right? You know, again, there's only been a couple of other online games of Train played, but this is the highest profile one because it is the Blast, you know, bounty event. And we're having, you know, Spirit, the best team in the world after winning the major, taking on Fnatic, another, you know, somewhat higher ranked European team, you know, certainly still in that kind of tier 2 to 1.5 range. You know, the branding and the Fnatic name is certainly higher than that, but kind of where they're at right now performance-wise, you know, they're a little bit down there, but still high enough rank to be involved in some of these bigger events. And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of take a look at things and, you know, test this format, see what you folks think about it. Let me know in the comments below. Again, please subscribe, like, all that jazz. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.